of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I apologize for the delay. It's my fault. Okay. We have quite a few minutes. Has everybody read them? For February 6th, the public and the non-public?
Actually, they were approved on March 20.
Those were? Okay, thank you. What about the next?
I couldn't find any indication anything else had been approved.
Okay, has everybody read the public and the non-public?
Yes.
We have a motion to...
I'll make a motion. I second that.
Lou and Bonnie. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you. The 26th, public and non-public, has everybody read them?
Yes.
Any corrections? Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Yep. And a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Minutes.
Why would happen?
That's March 26th.
Somebody else's turn.
Yeah.
So did it the last couple times.
What happened?
Sometimes, you know? That was in non-public, not public.
Right.
Do you have a question, Steve?
Yeah, there was,
What date?
March 26th.
Oh.
No. What is that? Can we go on to another one, and I gotta look something up here.
Okay, all right. Okay,
About the I believe it's March 26th.
Okay, April 2nd, public and non-public? Do I have any corrections? Do I have a motion to, Andy, do I have a second?
A second.
Okay. All those in favor? Andy and, Bob, I'm sorry. Looking at Donna Marie, I'm sorry. Okay, that's for the second. Okay. April 11th, the public and the non-public. Do I have any corrections? Do I have a motion?
I'll make a
Lou?
motion.
Andy? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? I've got the wrong date.
No, we just have something in non-public that we need to discuss.
Okay, all right. Let me see. May 7th? Yeah, I guess I got just public meeting minutes for that one.
The minutes were sealed.
Okay. Okay. Do I have any corrections on May 7th? The minutes have been sealed. Do I need a motion? Lou? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Yes.
That's public and non-public.
The non-public was sealed.
Non-public was sealed.
Can we just wait 1 second?
Yeah.
Don't we have to seal them in public so everybody sees that they're sealed?
Yes. Should
You
come out of, should come out of non-public, seal them in public.
Right,
and then-
right. So we just need to add the sealing, which was in the non-public, right?
Did we add it to this?
That was my first time doing
Yep.
minutes. So
So we
We need to have a correction then.
What do I need to add?
Well, that we sealed them.
Okay.
Yeah, we did do it non-public.
Now, how do I get that information if they've been sealed on who did it? Because I shredded my notes after.
I've got it.
Okay.
I've got it.
But who made the motion and seconded to approve the public?
Andy and Bob. I thought it was Lou and Bob, I believe.
Lou and Bob, right.
It's too many. Sorry.
Too many minutes.
Too many minutes.
Too many people.
Too many meetings.
And we're not addressing the non-public at this time.
No, they're sealed.
Right.
And the same should be with the next one also. So that, they're gonna be sealed also. That's gonna be May 9th,
So I need to add that on both of them?
yes. Any corrections? Do I have a motion? Andy, do I have a second?
Is it me?
With the corrections.
Yeah, Donna Marie? I'm sorry, Steve.
No, I'm sorry, I thought, I was looking at the 7th, I don't think they get the 9th.
You wanna see
It's
him?
on the
It's on the
opposite
back.
side.
They're on the back of some.
Wanna see, you got it?
There's May 9th.
You wanna read it first?
So do I just get the information from you,
I'll
fix
give
them
it.
and send that to
You want-
Kathy?
You want the 7th?
Yep. I just need to know who made the motion.
Okay, I should have it right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You all set, Steve?
Yeah,
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
all right.
Aye.
No? Abstain? Andrew gave me this. It's the holiday schedule for the SAU 64. So you'll have to look at it. We're gonna have to approve it. I know it's not on your agenda. I did ask Andrew to do one other thing, but I'm not, it was just for information to look at. It was adjustments in our health insurance for the employees. You can look at it and review it. Nothing will be done tonight. I'm not gonna do anything, just information at this point. Now, is everybody's, I just, okay. Has everybody seen the holiday schedule? Any questions or anything? Do I have a motion to approve? Andy, second?
I'll second that motion.
Carol, thank you. Okay, all those in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. All right. Right. Financial statement? Is that Andrew?
The expense report was run at the 23rd of May. I reran it this afternoon just to idea what the other looks like. We had a, after we pull out the Sig Grant expenses that are covered by the indirect costs, will be better than budget by about $17,000, or under budget by about $17,000.
Under?
Under. I put a cutoff as of Friday for putting through any more expenses that for the remainder of the school year.
Anybody have any questions for Andrew?
No questions on the expense report?
What's that, Andrew?
I said, nobody has any questions on the expense report?
Do I need a motion to accept it?
No.
Okay, all right. What about the revenue? Did anybody in the audience want a copy of this financial statement of revenue? Is that it? Okay, professional growth plan changes?
Yes, and those did not get in your packet, so.
Okay, Mary.
Mcintire, do you have all of those to hand out? Ashley first, and then.
I gave you all.
So there are quite a number of changes. My report, my curriculum coordinator's report also has the detailed changes on them. This was from the chair of the department, Ashley Green, that I'm passing out right now. And then my report will be following as well. We have an update. So primarily, what wasn't in the first draft of the professional growth plan, our subcommittees met this year and brought forward things like the administrator evaluation, paraprofessional evaluation, nurses evaluation, school psychologists, school counselors, all of the specialists that we didn't have in our plan prior to that. So all of those now are in our plan. We have our student learning objective rubric now in the plan, our whole school growth rubric, as well as a rubric for the SLOs, which are the student learning objectives. One of the highlights of it is what you have on the second piece of paper, the New Hampshire network. Our committee our full committee met as a writing committee on April 3rd, and we were filmed by the New Hampshire network for the educator effective learning path. So our committee, our district, the SAU actually, is highlighted on that film. It'll be a 15-minute film when it's done. They took over 3 hours worth of footage during that day, and they have to pare it down because they have 2 other districts also that they're highlighting in this film. So at this point, Ashley Frame, who is also part of the, as a director in this film, indicated that it looks very professional. She's very pleased with the outcome. And hopefully we'll be able to put our little snippets on our website when we finally get the final form.
Can you back up and describe briefly the networks and where the information comes from the networks and to whom it's going to be available?
The New Hampshire network there's quite a number of networks that the DOE, the Department of Education in the state of New Hampshire, has earmarked for professional development and learning, professional learning. And one of them is on the Effective Educator, or Educator Effectiveness Network. It is funded by Title II money that's set aside, and it doesn't come out of any Title II funds that we've already had. It's just set aside that the state has earmarked that for the entire state, for all the districts in the state of New Hampshire, for professional development.
The material that's made available through that network is not limited to New Hampshire material. There are promising practices from around the country that you can access. So our material, when it goes up, will not be limited to New Hampshire as well. It's going up it's a promising practice that will get highlighted on this network, but also picked up by other states for them to make available to their educators.
And New Hampshire happens to be one of the states that is moving forward with the educator effectiveness pathway. And so it's highlighted, New Hampshire's highlighted, and so this little film will actually be highlighted in the nation as a promising practice. So the fact that we were a collaborative effort, had so many committee and stakeholder members on all of the different subcommittees, all of that it will be highlighted, which is really kind of nice for our little SAU 64, as little as we are, to be highlighted in such a positive way. And now my report. You can just pass it on.
Will do.
Take one and pass it on.
Mary? I had a question. The Professional Growth Committee, does it actually conduct evaluations or does it just set up the way the evaluations are conducted?
The committee itself does not conduct any evaluations. That's usually the administrator and that principal or assistant principal in the buildings, superintendent for the principals. They're the ones that actually conduct the evaluations. The committee, the folks that are on the committee that are building related, help with the teachers' putting their portfolios together, help with any questions that they might have on student learning objectives, help with the training of the Danielson model. For instance, I've gone to some common planning times where the representative in the buildings have done a really good job of explaining how the evaluation process happens, but the actual committee itself does not do any evaluations.
Is it common for school board members who may have a spouse in the system, staff or administration? Is it common for a person like that to sit on a professional growth committee, or would that be considered a conflict of interest?
That I couldn't answer you. I would have to defer to somebody who has a little more knowledge than I.
The conflict of interest policy would not prohibit it. What the conflict of interest policy would require is that such a person make that known publicly up front, so that anyone who is choosing who's on that committee is aware of any relationship they might have that could be perceived as a conflict of interest. And then when there are decisions made that are specifically could be perceived as having self-interest, then the person would be expected to recuse themselves from that specific part of the conversation. But I don't see any reason why somebody in that situation couldn't be a participant, as long as it's very open.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any more questions for me?
I do.
Oh, sorry, Ann, go ahead.
Okay, you talked a little bit about the student learning objectives and how it was a challenge throughout the year in paras, and everybody had to do that, right? So Did everybody finally get that all done and everybody has their student learning objectives down and?
I am still meeting with teachers to help craft student learning objectives for especially those that, because it is tied into their recertification cycle. Our plan does state that if you are ending your recertification cycle, that the new student learning objectives need to be written by June 1st. So I'm still meeting with teachers to craft that. So no, they're not all written yet because they have until June 1st to write them and to get them in and to have a discussion with their administrator on their student learning objectives. So, okay. But we're making a dent in them. And that's one of the things that I think will actually move student achievement forward is those student learning objectives.
Yeah, and it's new, so
And it's
once
new.
they get used to it, it'll go easier, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Lou.
Mary, does that have to be done by September to start everybody on the equal foot?
Can you clarify, Lou, what specifically are you asking that has
The
to be done by
teachers and the
September?
parents, do they have to know this and how to teach this by September to start moving everybody along at a new rate?
Everybody is on a different recertification cycle. So those that have their recertification cycle ending as of June 2013 have to have 2 new SLOs by June 1st in order to have the conversation with their administrator. There are some that are on the old plan still because of the fact that they're on that. We don't all recertify at the same time, nor would the superintendent ever want us to all recertify at the same time because it's a huge amount of signing off on those recerts. So to answer your question, no, not everybody's going to have that same schedule. Within the next year, everybody should be doing the SLOs, the student learning objectives, and following through on the plan that way.
Is it every 3 years?
At this point, the
They
state has every
recertify?
3 years as far as recertification.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
Mary, what, Common Core, is that all been mandated down from the state already?
The state has adopted what's called New Hampshire College and Career Readiness Standards, which has taken the framework of the Common Core and included that in with the New Hampshire frameworks. So it's not really a mandate per se. We are going with Smarter Balanced Consortium assessment, which is going to be in 2015, and that is going to be based on the Common Core. So that's why the New Hampshire actually adopted the New Hampshire College and Career Readiness Standards.
So we're not mandated to follow that? Because
New Hampshire doesn't mandate too much of anything. They've adopted those frameworks, and we're going to be, the state assessment is going to be based on the Common Core.
the more I look at the Common Core, the more problems I have with it.
You're not alone. There's a lot of people that have some problem or some questions about the Common Core. At this point, the New Hampshire Department of Education has adopted the College and Career Readiness Standards,
Which is based on the Common Core.
which is based on the Common Core and the New Hampshire framework, because
Cool.
there are quite a number of topics or subjects, content areas that are not tested.
So are we obligated to follow that or not?
You
No.
want to answer that?
We're not obligated to follow it, but there really isn't anything to follow. The Common Core is not a curriculum. There's no textbook that goes with the Common Core. The Common Core really defines how the state, if it adopts it, is gonna measure school performance. It's what the state expectation is, and the state is gonna have that expectation. They are not going to tell us how we get our students to be able to be successful on those evaluations, and that's where some other states are different. They're saying you will adopt this curriculum and that curriculum that's directly driven by the Common Core. New Hampshire is saying we're using the Common Core for our overall framework of expectations, but we're not telling local districts how to do it. And that's one of the reasons why New Hampshire hasn't yet been successful in getting a waiver from No Child Left Behind, is that the federal government wants more detail, wants New Hampshire to have more rigid control over local education, and New Hampshire is fighting, trying to set general expectations and otherwise stay out of the local business. And that's part and parcel, as far as I understand it, of why New Hampshire's waiver hasn't been approved yet, is they're still grappling with the government about local control.
They recently, as recent as May 22nd, sent another whole series of answers to questions that the federal government had on the waiver. So we're still waiting to hear from that.
But that's No Child Left Behind.
The waiver from No Child Left Behind.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
But that doesn't have to do with Common Core.
It does to some extent in the fact of what Mr. Mcintire just said. It does because of the fact that the federal government wants the state of New Hampshire to have more local control, and yet the state...
No. Federal government wants the state of New Hampshire to allow less local control.
Right. Oh, I'm sorry.
You said
I
it
got that wrong.
backwards.
I'm sorry. Right. And the state of New Hampshire continues to advocate for local control.
Go ahead, Lou.
Common Core, is that, from my understanding, and so I'd like a clarification,
Sure.
is kind of like making a national.
The Common Core came into play for several reasons. There were some states that had no standards at all. So when the Council of Governors got together, they drafted some standards that they hoped would go somewhat of a national feel to them. And the states that adopted them in the beginning at first were the states that did not have any standards. So they adopted those as their standards, so they didn't have to write their standards. Like New Hampshire had the frameworks. And our framework standards, or our GSEs and GLEs, are very similar to the Common Core. There's not a whole lot of difference with those in that.
But New Hampshire frameworks are not very good standards compared to other states in itself.
It depends on what you mean by not very good. There's a lot of discussion about whose standards are more rigorous or less rigorous, and the development of the Common Core standards by the National Governors Association and the Council of Chief State School Officers was really a response to a Clinton administration initiative about 15 years ago, in which they basically floated the trial balloon of developing national curriculum. And the backlash was enormous. And everybody said, no way in this country are we going to have national curriculum. Some of the governors wanted to be able to team up with other governors so that they wouldn't have to develop, for example, whole state assessment systems for New Hampshire that only worked for New Hampshire because they had separate systems, spending an enormous amount of money. So the governors said, how can we work together to try to find groups of states that will adopt similar, if not identical, standards? And it was when they developed some standards that became popular and they started to get a groundswell toward those standards that the Common Core really emerged. And the reason why it's been able to be supported by a lot of states is specifically because it was developed by individual states rather than nationally. The fact that it's being adopted across states is they're very careful to say that they are standards that have been applied nationwide. Largely, they are not national standards because they were developed by states, and they've been very careful about that because of the problems that the Clinton administration got into. Nobody wants national standards other than President Clinton.
Okay, Steve, go ahead.
Well, I think we'd be better off with local control than giving up. So is there anything that we could do now to try to, because like I said, the more I look at Common Core, the less I like it. And I find I have more problems with it the more I look at it. Do we have to, like I said, is there anything that we could do to try to?
The issue becomes whether or not it's cost effective for us to not adopt. And the reason for that is because of the assessments. We would have to prove to the state that we have, that we can assess our students on those targets that they want the students to be able to know and do. So it becomes an issue of cost. It becomes a burden on us to say that, yes, we can demonstrate that our students know this information. And that's really that's only one of the burdens. I don't know how many more that would be applied, but that would be the one that I can think of.
It could be done. The whole purpose behind the waiver is that No Child Left Behind gets tighter and tighter at the end of its lifespan, and we've reached the end of its lifespan, and it's become so rigid that there's no way to give credit for schools that are making progress. You either made it adequate yearly progress or you didn't. And some of the schools that have been identified as failing under No Child Left Behind are schools that are actually making great progress. And so the concern has been, if we started at the bottom of the heap and we've been clawing our way up and we're not there yet, to get slammed in the public as a school that's not making adequate yearly progress, we made a whole lot more progress than the towns and districts that started out at the top of the heap and haven't done anything for the last 15 years. So the intent of the waiver is to try to change the way schools are measured so you can give some credit for improvement, not just for your absolute status. As for the Common Core, I think there are some ways that you could fight against that, if you will. The state is going to implement an assessment program that we're going to have to participate in. But you could communicate to the taxpayers of Wakefield and Milton and say, our kids have to take the assessment, but really that's not what we're all that interested in. We don't happen to measure robotics in the Common Core, but the towns of Milton and Wakefield have decided that the future of our economies is based on students being able to use these engineering skills, and we're gonna go ahead and do your silly Common Core tests, but what we really care about is if we're having improvements in our robotics test that we've implemented in grades 3 and 8 and 12. And so, you're going to have to play their game to a certain extent, but if you can say to your taxpayers, take this information that comes out from Smarter Balanced and take it with a grain of salt, because we've really decided that that's only part of what schools are about. There's another part over here that we want you, the taxpayers, to focus on, and we're going to draw attention to that, because it doesn't really matter whether you make adequate yearly progress. If you stay under No Child Left Behind, ultimately they have some penalties that they'll impose on you, but if the state gets a waiver, you're going to have more flexibility to say, here's what we really care about in our towns. Now, whether the taxpayers and the voters are going to buy what you're selling, or whether they're going to be more interested in Common Core, that's up to you. But I think you definitely could do that. Anybody, Scott, what do you think? You agree, disagree, feel free.
I think it's awfully early to take any action. I think what needs to happen for the board is somebody needs to present both sides of the issue to them. I think that the Common Core, the corestandards.org website, is a little slanted to one side because of who it's written by. That's just the way things go. But I think the board could use some more information about Common Core. I think that it would be nice to outline the pros and the cons for the board, and present that back to them in an effort to reach some sort of understanding of exactly what the Common Core is and what it does, how the standards were developed, what subgroups were considered in those standards, because there were subgroups seriously considered in those standards. And I guess the only other thing I would say is, it really is a core, like the core of the apple. It's the core standards in the curriculum. You still have the ability locally to build the rest of the apple
Right.
Right.
around the core.
Right.
So it's not a national curriculum like, yes, the kindergarten reading standards may be the same for kindergartens across the country. However, it doesn't limit the teacher's ability to use a trade book that has to do with the state of New Hampshire
Right.
to meet those standards. So it's really, if you look at it just like an apple, like a core, the core is just the core standards. There's plenty of local pulp that you can add to those cores to enrich the experience and to educate students about their communities and localities within that. So I think there's if you go to that website, it's corestandards.org. Again, written by the people who developed it, but read through. There's facts, there's myths versus facts, there's frequently asked questions, there's some PowerPoint presentations that you can watch. And take a close look at that, and then maybe have the administration over the summer at a calmer time do a presentation on the Common Core and what that means to both districts.
Andy, go ahead.
If we do go to Common Core, the math programs we have in place, the reading programs we have in place, will they meet the standard to go with the Common Core? Is that something we need to look at as well? Things I've heard is that, like everyday
Teachers are
math.
looking right now at their lessons and aligning them with the Common Core state standards, or with actually the New Hampshire College and Career Readiness standards. So they're already involved in that process of looking at it to see.
Because I've heard everyday math does not fit into the Common Core curriculum, the standards to be able to, or you would have to have revisions to it.
You'll never find one program to meet all of your needs, and what you're talking about is a program, not a curriculum.
Mhm.
So things do have to be supplemented.
Yes.
And so we know that going into it. We know that we're going to have to do some supplemental for the program itself in order to meet those standards. So, but we are trying to make sure that we have the materials necessary to do that.
Steve?
Are we gonna get that presentation?
If you'd like it.
If you'd like one. Okay.
Well, they can say okay, because they're going to be here.
They're not gonna be-
I know. So tag I'm it. No?
I've got, Mary, I actually have one I can just forward to you.
Thank you.
Perfect.
But no, I'll definitely do that. That's fine.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
So on my report, I just want to clarify that the top part, the 1 through 10, are some of the major things, and the detail are below. So if you want to get more involved in finding out a little bit more about the detail of any of those 1 through 10, it's further down on the report.
Can I ask a question, please, Doug?
Go ahead, I'm sorry if I can't see this.
I
Go
know.
ahead.
I'm gonna
I can't
get
say
a
just
flag
speak
and
up.
put it out there. Thank you for all this information. And then the standards-based report cards. So we're working on it. You're going to do some professional development over the summer and such. But when do you think they'll actually be implemented? Are we like a year away or 2 years away, or
The pilots are going to happen next year. We're
next year? Meaning
during
Okay.
the year. We've indicated that, for instance, in the schools, we're looking to get them internally done so that they can be run with the report cards now, and then do some professional development around that, do some parent forums to make sure that people understand what the new report card looks like. And then hopefully by the second semester or the third quarter to actually go live with some of them as far as certain classes.
Okay, and is that at all grade levels?
certain grade levels will go live. So, some of the grade levels are already testing them. They already have their own standard-based report card that's going home to parents even now, and so it will become even clearer and more
More prevalent.
more prevalent, and we're hoping by the fourth quarter of next year to have a working district-wide, so that it's the format's very similar to for the whole district,
Okay,
or districts, I should say, for the whole SAU.
all right, thank you.
Anybody else? Y'all all set, Mary?
I'm all set if everybody else is.
Yep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Student Services end-of-year report.
This is really the first time I've been asked to do an end-of-year report. I really struggled with what to provide you. I mean, I provide a monthly report every month to each
Well,
district. So I'm just going to read what I've written out.
Okay, go
All
ahead.
the notes that I've compiled, and we'll see if this works for you, okay?
No, I think the reason I did that was because we're gonna have such an outflux and influx.
Yeah, so I tried to write a lot down for you, actually.
Yeah,
So,
that's why I don't know if it was wrong or right.
no, I just want to make sure I hit the mark on what you want.
I'm sure it is.
So this year was busy, every year is. We had to acclimate a new preschool teacher in Wakefield, a new school psychologist, and we also forget that Mrs. Bordeau was only hired last March. So we spent the year training her too. So Mrs. Bordeaux attended NESS's catastrophic aid, Section 402 trainings, I4C trainings over the course of the year. I spent considerable amounts of time leading teams and teachers and administrators to response to instruction network presentations, dropout prevention activities, and behavior management professional development activities. We spent a lot of time and resources on supporting the planning and implementing of response to instruction in all 3 schools. I counted my calendar today just for fun, and I found out I attended over 120 IEP meetings and made over 90 appearances in court over the course of the year. Milton tolerated a state review of Indicator 13, which is the transition, and scored 100%. I spent the year supporting the policy committees again. We supported and participated in hiring an interim and now a new principal in Milton, at Milton Elementary School. We're still in that process. We converted from Medicaid billing. We converted Medicaid billing from paper to electronic billing for cost and efficiency. Created a team of nurses and counselors for the focus of behavioral month with the expectation that, behavioral health with the expectation that we met monthly. In collaboration with various stakeholders in various roles, we applied for a partnership, an alternative education grant, and then the 21st Century Grant for Milton. And then I sort of outlined, I thought it would be important for people to know that I began replacing laptops and computers that were purchased through IDEA so we don't get hit with a huge total all at once out of special education. Converting existing computers to student use. Purchased more iPads this year because the students with disabilities are starting to really use them. English language learner services for students who aren't proficient with English are now implemented in all 3 districts. If I have to look forward to next year, just like Wakefield got a lot of focus about 4 years ago, when they were selected for focus monitoring and restructuring, it's Milton's year. So next year we'll have to focus on focus monitoring in Milton. I can tell you that I'm happy that your leadership team is already established, your achievement team is already established, and the first meeting with the consultants is scheduled for August 12th. Plan to have the hiring for the new school psychologist completed by the end of June. I'm working right now on getting your IDEA grant in line for the non-discretionary items such as your psychologist, and I'll read through what's in IDEA for you in a minute, and positions that need to be there for students, and I'll leave the other stuff out for now and determine that later. Extended school year planning and transportation schedules are all done and ready to go. We're waiting for the final applicants to come in, and then we'll get all the hiring done. So you guys are good to go with your summer plans on the 8th of July. If I take a look, I've never really shared the IDEA grant with you, not that it's a big secret, just because we really haven't had a lot of time to do it, but, so I listed the activities that are actually written into the grant and what we use that money for. A lot of that money is used for positions in your district. Your 2 psychologists are funded out of there, although a small portion of their salary was picked up by the local operating budget because of sequestration. But the good news is that we're going to roll $40,000 in this year into next year, so that will offset that reduction that you experienced from the government. But we use that money when we have problems come up and we don't have money budgeted in other places for that. So if we're in an IEP team meeting and one of the staff that needs help with working with a student in autism, I use that money to hire services to develop them professionally. So this year, out of IDEA, we led a team of teachers to a Discipline with Dignity conference. I sent teachers to Connecticut to learn about Linda Mood Bell reading, which is a specialized reading program. We sent 3 staff to Common Core implementation conferences. There was a maternity leave in the preschool and the child find services couldn't be provided, so I hired temporary child find services out of the grant. Crisis Prevention Institute training, you have a trainer down in Milton who works with your staff on maintaining safety training, which at the end can be restraint, but it's de-escalation training. We pay him out of that. We buy the materials out of that. This year we sent one of the psychologists to the National Convention. We hired an autism panel in Wakefield to work with the staff for the day on what it's like to have a student with autism or be a parent of a student with autism. We purchased reading intervention curriculum, purchased Zoophonics for early childhood literacy. We purchased 10 iPads, 15 laptops, a separate PC to score those assessments we have to do, some additional math intervention material, 30 seats for an electronic reading intervention program we purchased, assessment materials, spent about $17,000 in dropout prevention services for your students, and then the 2 coordinators, Milton and Wakefield, both have a 20-day contract extension, and those come out of the grant rather than the local operating budget. We also have behavioral consultation that we pay for, assistive technology services, and autism consultation that actually come out of that grant. So I thought you might like to know what we use the grants for. So I think, that's about it.
Thank you very much, Scott. Anybody have any questions for Scott?
Can you say that all over again?
Yeah, I wrote it down. Want me to say it backwards?
I have.
Thank you.
Sure.
Scott, you said something about electronic reading.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that something that the kids that can't grasp it, is that something that parents could go on and get it?
Yeah, we wish. Read Naturally Live doesn't really work that way. Some things do. And this is actually a dedicated seat. You select your students and you keep your students, and there is no access at home. It's loaded into the system. But it is exactly what you described. It's intervention curriculum for students who are struggling readers. But it's good for about 3rd grade through 8th grade.
Oh.
So there's other things that can be done in other grades.
Are there any programs that,
Yeah, I would suggest, Lou, that you actually come and see me, and I'll give you a list of programs, because I know the age that you're thinking of, and I can just give you a list without taking up time in the meeting.
okay, thanks.
Anybody
See
have
you
anything
tomorrow.
else? Okay. So that's okay for number 6? I think it's what, Jay?
Thanks. I decided to try to narrow this down to 5 areas. Within a single year, it can be a mistake to get too many different initiatives going. So I want to organize them. The first area that we've focused on, of course, is board and community support, and that relates to such efforts as negotiating the collective bargaining agreements, and the leaders in that are actually here in the audience from negotiating two contracts, being involved in the Friends of Newt, visiting various high schools with the Wakefield board members to try to identify different possibilities. I really wanted to make sure that we've that we've opened the doors, reconsidered all of the decisions that have been made, and make sure that we've made the right ones. So I've tried this year to make sure that we didn't foreclose on any opportunities because of past practices. Another major area was building cohesiveness and direction on the administrative team. You may not have thought of it this way, but we have 9 administrators that have some involvement in instructional leadership. The 3 of us in the central office and the 6 principals or assistant principals. 2/3 of that group is new, wasn't here last year. So when you think about the instructional leadership in the district, 2/3 of that group turned over. And trying to develop some cohesiveness in team when you have only 1/3 of the people that have any history whatsoever really took a lot of time and energy. The way we've done that is by identifying some key people, some of whom we were able to use directly and have work with us directly, and one of whom we didn't. So the people that we have that exist in New Hampshire we've been able to take advantage of is Bill Bryan for overall leadership, to work with the administrative team on improving our overall leadership skills and capacity. Kevin Perks looking at literacy instruction, who we've done some work with this year, and I'm really optimistic there's going to be a lot more work with next year. Brian Setzer, who worked with us on efficiency of systems. Are we putting in the same piece of information 8 different times into different parts of the computer system when we could put it in once? So he's been working with us on how do we have a more efficient system so we don't waste time administratively and we can spend more money, more of the taxpayers' money in the classroom. And then the other, from an instructional leadership standpoint, is John Haddy. We have started a group reading of his book, Visual Learning for Teachers, with the administrative team. So we've sort of chosen a few key people that I have been really optimistic by their work, and we focused on them to try to bring us all together and also to improve all of our skills. Another of the things that I've focused on this year, and Ann will verify, is my obsession with long-term planning. And I was really pleased with the number of board members that went to the strategic planning training last week, because I think that if you don't know where your long-term goal is, it's easy to get whiplash following one crisis after the next, and the students and the taxpayers are the ones that suffer from lack of direction. So I'm very excited about that. The other thing that I would point out has been a priority of mine this year has been emergency preparedness, not in terms of rewriting our plans, but in terms of focusing on the 2 areas that it's been my experience are most likely to fail in an emergency in schools. And that is communication is number 1, and number 2 is failures of leadership. And not understanding leadership, not knowing how to effectively perform in a unified command situation with outside agencies. So we've focused on that at every administrative team meeting since July. We have addressed some component of emergency management, and largely it has been around the leadership function relating to emergencies. Those are what I see as the 5 major areas that I've tried to address this year.
Does anybody have any questions for Scott? And could you give me a copy of your notes and stuff later so I can just tack them onto mine?
I'll have them typed up tomorrow and I'll email them to you.
Oh, okay, that'd be fine. You don't have to type them,
I'm not typing them, just have them typed up. They're on
Oh, okay.
Doug?
Oh, sorry,
I
go ahead.
guess that question could maybe be expanded to all of the board members. I mean, is there a way that
Yeah, we can
we
get it to
could
all.
all
Yeah.
get just kind of like a record or a history?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, the other thing I wanted to ask about was that 21st Century Grant. How did that, can I get some information on that?
We were notified on the 17th of May that we were not selected as a finalist for that grant.
Now, was there a feedback on that?
A very, very short feedback form that did not give any specifics. I have emailed the reviewing committee, and right now they're involved in meeting with the people that were selected, but they
Okay.
have told me that they will give me some specific feedback so that next year when we apply for it again, hopefully we'll be
Okay.
approved.
Would
So.
would the board like to get a copy of that feedback, everybody?
Mhm.
Good, okay. Now, how big is the application when it was submitted?
It was huge.
Oh, then I don't want a copy of that.
The application for all the grants, any of the competitive grants that we've done is probably close to 200 pages. So,
That's a way,
you know,
I understand, okay.
if you want some reading material before you go to bed at night,
I've got plenty now.
The feedback that we got for the 21st Century Grant was really mixed. It's a half glass full, glass half empty scenario, because our score wasn't very strong compared to some that got it. However, the other feedback we got was that we got a good score for a first time. Typically, you have to apply for these several times before you figure out exactly what words they're looking for, exactly how they want it organized. So, you know, this was our first time out of the chute, and as Mary said, if it's something that you support, having somebody outside of your own taxpayers paying for after-school programs and additional support for students, then I'm sure it's something you'll be pursuing next year.
we're still actually pursuing other things that might be out there to help us with that as well.
Anybody in the audience have any comments on? Okay. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Jay, the last part of what you had just stated, is that the same thing as saying without a grant?
Oh,
whether the
no,
tax-
no, I was referencing in general. I mean, obviously grants, we can talk about the pros and cons of them, and they get paid for by somebody, whether it's coming out of your pocket as a taxpayer on this bill or that bill, it gets paid for. But if the boards are interested in funding these in their budgets, that's certainly something that could be developed in the budget, is beefing up these programs, and or pursuing grants is another option. Either way is available.
Okay, thank you.
But does anybody else have any question for Jay or Scott, or, 'cause I don't know if we'll be, well, I think we'll probably be meeting with Scott again.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I don't think there's any other joint board
There's
meetings
no joint board meetings, but
scheduled.
we'll be around individual board.
okay, all right. Okay, I guess that is, I guess we got non-public to go into?
Well, hold.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes, thank you, Scott. We do, every year, need to ask the permission of the joint board for the SAU to apply for grants. The IDEA grant is an example. We can't get those resources that Scott just described for you, how we spent them, without a vote of the board to allow us to apply for grants. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, and actually, we're gonna do three vote, you're gonna do one vote here, and then I'm gonna come to you individually as boards and get another vote. I need to include that information on the grant application. I've started writing, so.
So how do you want that worded exactly?
Somebody would make a motion to give the SAU permission to apply for grants.
I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
For discussion?
Yes.
I'll second it for discussion.
All right, good, okay. For discussion.
Long list of strings attached, I'm sure, right? I mean,
Not for entitlement so much. You know, not for entitlement grants. It's an allocation that's given to you based on your poverty index and your ratio of students with disabilities. I mean, there's rules I need to follow, and there's inventory requirements, but there's no, you gotta do this.
really.
Well,
The string comes when you will lose that federal money. Let me think of a tangible example. We receive federal funds, right? So when we receive federal funds, we agree to follow federal rules. So one of those is equal opportunity employment, right? So we'll take this special ed money because and we'll follow the EOE rules because that's what's required. I don't think you'd pursue being a non-equal opportunity employer if you didn't receive federal funds. the strings attached to the entitlements aren't like a Sig Grant in Milton, where there were specific activities that needed to be done to qualify for the grant.
They're typically compliance with the law. New Mexico was the last state in the country to approve IDEA funds, and they were hanging out there for close to a decade. Every couple of years, there's a state someplace in the country that seriously considers not pursuing IDEA funds. And I've been closely involved with this for a while, so what they always find is that they were gonna have to do those strings anyway to stay on the right side of the law. So the amount of additional strings in order to get the money was minimal, and there hasn't been a state that hasn't participated in IDEA since 1992, I believe, was when New Mexico joined. So that's just an example. We don't have to pursue individual ones. Individual ones can come to the board, and there were some that Wakefield decided this year they didn't want to pursue.
Right.
But the entitlement ones like IDEA, as Scott said, are just distributed based on your population largely. It's the ones like No Child Left Behind, like Race to the Top, thank you,
Right, those
that
are-
have specific agenda behind them, that have some political agenda behind them. And when you buy into them, one could argue that you're getting involved with a political agenda.
And let me help you. Let me explain one more thing. Okay. So if we take the word entitlement grants and we take the root out of it, Title 1, Title 2, IDEA, those are your entitlements. Those are different than SIG or Race to the Top or
21st Century.
Those are competitives and they come with more strings.
Yeah.
Okay. Entitlements are not competitive. They're based on an allocation formula that the money comes into the state from the federal government. The state uses a formula to distribute the money to the local school districts after they take their piece to run their own thing. So it's Title 1, Title 2, Title 2D,
Right.
IDEA, what else? I can't remember.
Well, Title 1D is the restructuring,
Right.
which both, yeah.
REAP.
But,
REAP, rural and
Yeah.
low income.
Rural, yeah, rural and low
so,
income.
do the board members have an opportunity to understand, I mean, I understand time's always of the essence, but is there a window of opportunity for board members to understand exactly what these grants, where they come from, what they do, and really what that...
Are you asking for me?
Yeah, may I have that information?
Sure. Mary, will you sit down with me tomorrow?
Yeah, well.
Or maybe you could just point
I'm
me in
not
the direction where it's all
Well, I
that...
think we
Yeah,
need to break
sure.
it down so you know which is which.
One of
not a simple
the issues that we're having right now is the fact that the waiver is still being discussed at the state, on the state level, with the federal government. We do not know what our allocation will be for next year on any of those entitlement grants.
Except for mine.
Except for the IDEA. And that's the reason why he brought it up, is because he has his allocation already. I do not. I do not know what Title I is yet. I will not know what Title II is. I will not know if we have any rural and low income, and I won't know anything about any of the Cinny-Dinny. I don't know any of those. So I can't really answer those until we find out about the waiver. We're all in that same boat. All the districts in the state are in that same boat. Nobody has heard anything at all. So I wish I could tell you the allocation and all of that, but I can't at this point. But I can tell you that it all comes from the New Hampshire DOE, and it is an allocation process, just like what Scott has indicated, and it's an extremely long formula, and I can get that information for you.
Are you asking like more generic, like what is this entitlement and what does it do?
I'm asking, I don't really care so much about what money's, the amount of money or stuff like that.
I don't know what it's for.
I'm
What
more
it's for.
interested in the
Okay.
mechanisms, what is the reason behind the grants and stuff like that? And if it's logical, and if the end result is well-educated children, that's good, but Are they learning the, sometimes I feel as though any federal monies, although it comes from us taxpayers initially, it's it's the cheese in the mousetrap, so I don't know.
Are you
I don't-
asking for a
certainly-
presentation?
What's that?
Are you asking for a presentation?
I'm not asking for a presentation, I'm asking for just information that you can share with me, that I can share with others. So we all know.
Sure,
What?
We
Mary,
can put
why-
together
Well,
a
we
couple
can draft
pages.
something.
And email
Say,
it.
here are some
Yeah,
types
we can do
of
that, absolutely.
types of grants.
Yeah.
Here are the types of things that they fund. We can talk about Title I as a total, with all of the subparts in one short paragraph. And it seems to me a couple of pages is probably as much information as you want.
Yeah.
And I think we could do a decent job of
Yeah.
providing a summary.
Or
Yeah, we
even
can do
the
that.
site, even if it was a site where the information could be gained. You know, I mean, if that was.
That doesn't exist.
Government
You'd be better off
websites.
that.
Yeah, you don't want to, because
They
then
might
you
get
get,
misled.
it goes like this.
Didn't
So
the,
we'll give you a synopsis.
didn't the New Hampshire School Board Association pass out a handout that was protected, dealing with that? I think it's in my other book.
Is it password protected?
No, it was laminated. It was, the right,
Like grants at the fingertips?
yeah, that's what it was, yeah. I would have swore we
That
got
would
one.
be nice.
We'll have
Oh,
to-
I can check the
We'll have
website.
to
I have my
Google
log,
that
I
one
can
and see
check
if
the
we can find one.
websites.
Okay, I'll
See
take
if
a
they
look.
have
I don't, it's in my other book.
I'm not trying to give you more.
Oh, no.
You already know.
Makes total sense that you would want
Maybe
that.
it's got it.
Well, I think we was, that second that I made for discussion,
Yeah,
what that motion was, I think, was asking for some action, as
Yeah,
far as.
I need to write a date down, so I need a decision.
all right. I want, okay, all set. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
I'll abstain for now.
Okay.
Vote later when I know more.
Oh, okay, it's fine.
I have two more brief items, if we could.
Yeah,
Mr.
go ahead.
Chair.
Yeah.
The first is that we have some personnel to hire that are SAU employees that are in the preschool program. We have a school psychologist that we need to replace. You'll get the resignation soon. And we would like to have your permission to hire over the summer for non-administrative positions without having to pull together the whole joint board. This allows us to make an offer to somebody and to have that offer hold water without having to have a special meeting of the joint board. This would not be the case for administrators. We would bring in the administrators to you for approval, but this is for non-administrative positions.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay,
For discussion,
yeah, yes, go
how
ahead.
many positions and what would the cost be?
Two, I think that we...
Potentially two, and there will be no additional cost. There are already existing positions. You potentially have somebody who is resigning from a position, and you have somebody who you're going to get a resignation from who is moving closer to home. There's no additional, cost to that. You're just replacing people. And it would be the school psychologist and potentially, not 100% definite, one preschool teacher.
Thank you.
Do I have any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Go ahead, Chip.
And the next item is just a matter of historical practice. During the summers, the practice of the office that I inherited, and I want to make sure you're aware of it, is that during the summer after the school year is out, that the office goes to a 4-day-a-week, 10-hour-a-day schedule with the SAU office being closed on Fridays. I want to make sure that you're aware of that and that, if you do nothing, I think that would be the continued practice. If you would like to have that changed, then that's something that you should address.
If I remember, can I speak, Doug?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
If I remember correctly, we went to the Fridays off just a few years ago because, Priscilla or Scott, you know, some people took Monday off and then some people had Friday off and So the
Yeah.
office was open
When-
5 days, but that didn't work well?
I think it was a frustration to the former superintendent that when you went to get something done, you had a 50% chance of somebody being out on a vacation, which Priscilla's laughing, she knows. You had a 50% chance of somebody being out. So her solution to that was to, in the summertime, everybody works 4/10s and the office is closed on Friday. It doesn't always apply to the administrative staff, which is okay. But to the support staff, that's what she did.
Did that work out well?
You know, everything works, the one concern that I have about that system is that I think it needs to end sooner, like a week earlier than when it ends now. That would be the only point of improvement that I would have is, you know, if school starts the 23rd, don't stop your 4/10s on the 19th. Stop them on the 10th. And then, and then, you know, it's time for all hands to be on deck. Other than that, I think it was helpful to morale. I didn't hear too many complaints about not being there on Fridays. Yeah, I think it worked pretty well. And it
Well,
was
for board members too, if there are questions that you bring to the superintendent and the superintendent needs that person to be there to answer it, if they're inconsistent about being there, then sometimes it can actually, it delays your work as well.
Well, and then you have, you know, you have an increased capacity for error. You're gonna forget, misplace what you wrote it on, because the person isn't there. And if you can address it right there, you can get things moving. So, you know, I think it's worked okay.
No, am I going to need a motion the week before the opening of school that we,
2 weeks before?
I would suggest, you make it effective the last week in June, and it goes until the end of the second week in August. So there's 1 week in June, all of July, and the first 2 Fridays in August. And then everybody's back, all hands on deck, getting ready for school. Just for a point of discussion.
okay, I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have any discussion? So we're all okay with that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay. Anybody have anything else before we go into non-public? Oh, I do have something, a minor one.
Yeah.
Are we gonna wanna meet? It's the 5th Wednesday of the month of July, the 31st, as a joint board? No?
I would think we need to. It's when you get most of your work done.
Well, we'll have our new,
action.
You'll have your new
Employees,
superintendent, I
yeah.
would think you'd wanna
Meet
touch
him
base with him.
talk to.
We never have a July 31st meeting.
We never do?
I think we did.
Oh, I thought we met every 5th Wednesday.
But if we need one, we need one.
Well, I think we're gonna have new.
I think we personally, sorry,
Go ahead.
I personally, with new people coming on board, that'd be one meeting we can all get together before school starts, because August doesn't have 5 weeks, I don't believe, and it may be a
If we do
very
school,
good
we
idea.
started.
I
We're
mean,
gonna have a new
Right?
student services and a new superintendent
Yes.
to meet. I think it's a really good
You
idea.
don't take with that?
July
the
31st.
31st,
It's the 30th.
30th?
30th?
The 30th is the Wednesday.
No,
No,
the
31st.
Oh, and then
31st.
2014,
No,
sorry.
Is anybody gonna be on
always planning.
vacation or anything? That'll be
I'm
bad.
way ahead.
That's okay.
Way ahead.
So I guess we're all in agreement then. I don't need a motion?
No.
You can
Okay,
just call
then.
a meeting, Doug.
What's that?
You can just call a meeting.
Oh, no, this is a group thing. So, okay. You want in Wakefield?
Yeah.
Steve wants it in Wakefield, okay?
Well, that's all right, we had 2 in
That's fine.
Milton, that makes 2.
That's fine.
Three.
Oh,
We gotta
3,
catch
I'm
up.
sorry.
Okay.
That's all right, Steve.
5 o'clock?
You want it 5, Steve?
5 or 6?
5.
Steve wants it at 5.
I'm good with that, Steve. Paul School,
He
Wakefield.
does my scheduling from now on. Okay? I guess that's all. Anybody else have anything else? Thank everybody for their patience. We'll get better as we go along.
We do have non-public. We have.
Oh, yes, we do that.
Yes.
Lots of non-public.
Yeah, we're going into, okay, wanna go into, no, what are,
Are we going into more than what's listed on the agenda?
Okay.
yes, that was my next question.
They're talking to you.
I'm sorry.
So are we going into more
How
than
many of
what's
these
on
do you
the
wanna
agenda?
use?
It is all relating to personnel.
Okay.
Okay, which one do you want?
There's RSA 91,
C. 91A.
A,
2,
2,
3,
C.
Okay, all right, I got that. Okay, do I have a motion to go into, non-public?
Motion.
Andy, do I have a
Second.
second? Steve, okay. I'll do the roll call, all right. We have the things listed. Ann,
Yes.
Lou,
Yep.
myself, yes. Donna Marie,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Robert,
Yes.
Vivian's absent, I'm sorry. Ralph,
Aye.
Stephen,
Yes,
and Bonnie.
yes.
We are in non-public at
6:19.
6:19.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
6:19.